Maya Collins knew she was different from the day she could walk. While other children on New Montana Colony ran away from the giant rock lizards that lived in the caves, Maya sat with them and somehow understood what they wanted. Her parents thought it was just imagination. The colony doctors said it was normal childhood behavior. But Maya knew better. She grew up listening to creatures that no one else could hear. The silver birds that nested in the metal towers of the colony told her about storms coming 3 days early. The underground moles warned her family about cave-ins before the mining sensors detected anything. By the time she turned 18, Maya had saved dozens of lives just by listening to what the animals were trying to say. Now, at 28, Dr. Maya Collins worked as a life scientist aboard the research ship USS Endeavour. Captain Jake Morrison had picked her for the deep space mission because of her unusual success with alien life forms. What he didn't know was that Maya could actually talk to them. The Endeavour was 3 months into mapping the outer colonies when the first attacks began. The messages came in broken pieces over the long-range radio. Colony ships going silent. Rescue teams finding nothing but burning ruins. An enemy that struck fast and disappeared before human forces could respond. Zephyrians, Captain Morrison said during the emergency briefing. That's what the survivors are calling them. Gray ships, advanced weapons, no attempts at communication. They just attack and move on. Maya sat in the back of the briefing room, trying to focus on the captain's words, but something else was distracting her. A strange feeling, like voices calling from very far away. Not human voices. Something else. Lieutenant Commander Ryan Hughes stood up from his seat. "Sir, what are our orders?" "We're heading to Kepler 44 to be," Morrison replied. "Oh, there's a research station there with 300 people. Last transmission was 6 hours ago. We might be their only hope." As the Endeavour changed course toward the distant planet, Maya felt the strange voices getting stronger. She went to her quarters and tried to sleep, but the calling in her mind wouldn't stop. It was like a song, but not quite. Like words, but in no language she recognized. When they reached Kepler 44 to be 2 days later, the research station was under attack. Strange gray ships hung in the sky like metal clouds, firing red beams down at the buildings below. Explosions lit up the planet's surface in the darkness of space. "Battle stations," Captain Morrison ordered. "All hands to combat positions." The Endeavour was a research ship, not a warship. They had light weapons and basic shields, nothing that could fight the alien vessels attacking the planet. But Morrison tried anyway. He ordered the ship into the atmosphere, hoping to draw the enemy away from the research station. It worked, but not the way they hoped. 3 of the gray ships turned toward the Endeavour and opened fire. The human ship shook under the impact of weapons unlike anything Maya had ever seen. The shields failed in minutes. "We're losing power," Hughes reported from his station. "Hull breach on Deck 7. Need to evacuate." Morrison's face was grim. "Prepare the escape pods. All non-essential personnel to the lifeboats." Maya was heading for her assigned pod when the voices in her head suddenly became clear. Not human voices, but she could understand them now. They were afraid. They were calling for help. They were very, very angry. She changed direction and ran toward the observation deck instead of the escape pods. Through the thick windows, she could see the surface of Kepler 44 to be below. The research station was still burning, but something else caught her attention. Large shapes were moving across the landscape, heading toward the burning buildings. The creatures were massive, easily the size of small houses. They looked like walking mountains of crystal and stone, with 4 thick legs and long, flexible necks. Maya had read about them in the planet survey reports. The colonists called them thornbacks because of the sharp ridges along their spines. Dangerous predators that usually avoided human settlements, but these thornbacks weren't running away. They were moving toward the battle. Maya pressed her hands against the window and concentrated. The voices in her head grew stronger. She could feel their emotions now, raw and powerful. Pain from watching their world burn. Anger at the gray ships destroying everything. Something else. Hope. They were hoping the humans would understand. "Help us," Maya whispered. not sure if she was speaking to the creatures or for them. "Help us." One of the gray ships swept low over a group of thornbacks preparing to fire. Maya watched in horror, knowing she was about to see the magnificent creatures destroyed. But then something amazing happened. The largest thornback reared up on its back legs and roared. The sound was so deep and powerful that Maya felt it through the ship's hull. Blue energy crackled along the creature's crystal ridges, and suddenly the gray ship's weapons stopped working. The alien vessel wobbled in the air and crashed into the ground. What the hell was that? Hugh's voice came over. "The ship's communication system." Maya didn't answer. She was too busy listening to the celebration in her mind as dozens of thornbacks sang their victory song. But their celebration was short. More gray ships were coming, and the creatures were asking her something. They wanted to know if the humans would fight with them. Maya ran from the observation deck toward the bridge. She had to find Captain Morrison. She had to tell him that they weren't alone in this fight. The thornbacks wanted to help, but they needed someone to coordinate with them. Someone who could understand what they were trying to say. She burst onto the bridge just as another wave of gray ships began their attack run on the surface. Captain Maya shouted over the noise of alarms and damage reports, "I need to get down to the planet right now." Morrison looked at her like she had lost her mind. "Dr. Collins, we're evacuating. The escape pods are ready." "The thornbacks," Maya said, trying to catch her breath. "They want to help us fight, but I need to get down there to coordinate with them." The captain stared at her. Round the bridge, the other officers had stopped what they were doing to listen. In the silence, they could all hear the deep roars of the thornbacks rising from the planet below. "Collins," Morrison said slowly, "are you telling me you can talk to those things?" Maya nodded. "Yes, sir. And they're very angry about what the Zephyrians are doing to their world." Morrison looked out at the battle raging below. The research station was lost, but the thornbacks were still fighting. As they watched, another gray ship fell from the sky, brought down by some kind of energy pulse from the crystal creatures. "Hughes," the captain said finally, "prepare a shuttle. Dr. Collins is going to the surface, sir." Hughes looked confused. "You heard me. If those creatures want to help us fight, then we're going to give them that chance." Morrison turned to Maya. "Collins, if you're wrong about this, we're all dead." Maya felt the voices of the thornbacks calling to her from below. Full of hope and determination, she smiled. "I'm not wrong, Captain. Trust me." The shuttle dropped through the burning atmosphere of Kepler-4 for it to be like a falling star. Maya gripped her seat as the small craft shook violently, dodging energy blasts from the gray alien ships above. Lieutenant Commander Ryan Hughes piloted with steady hands, weaving between the thornbacks on the ground and the Zephyrian fighters in the sky. "Landing zone coming up," Hughes called back to Maya. "You sure about this, Doc?" Maya could feel the thornbacks calling to her, their voices growing stronger as they got closer to the surface. The largest one, the alpha of the pack, was waiting for her near the crashed research station. She could sense its intelligence, ancient and patient, and its burning anger at the invaders who were destroying its world. "I'm sure," she replied, though her heart was pounding. The shuttle touched down 50 meters from the alpha thornback. Through the window, Maya could see the massive creature watching them. It stood 15 feet tall at the shoulder, its crystal ridges glowing with soft blue light. Behind it, dozen more thornbacks waited in formation, like soldiers ready for battle. Hughes checked his weapon. "I'm coming with you," No, Maya said firmly. "They might see you as a threat. I need to do this alone." She stepped out of the shuttle and walked slowly toward the Alpha. The air smelled of smoke and burning metal from the destroyed research station. In the distance, she could hear the sounds of battle as more gray ships attacked other parts of the colony. The Alpha Thornback lowered its massive head as Maya approached. This close, she could see that its skin wasn't really crystal at all, but some kind of living rock that shifted and changed color with its emotions. And how it glowed. With deep red anger and bright white determination, Maya reached out with her mind, the way she had learned to do as a child. The connection was immediate and overwhelming. Suddenly, she could feel what the Alpha felt, see what it saw, understand what it knew. The Thornbacks had been on this planet for thousands of years. They were not just animals, but a civilization. of their own. They had cities deep underground, connected by tunnels that stretched across continents. They had families, art, and their own form of science based on manipulating crystal energy. And now, the Zephyrians wanted to strip mine, their world, for the same crystals that gave the Thornbacks their power. I understand, Maya whispered, placing her hand on the Alpha's massive leg. You want to save your home? The Alpha's response came not in words, but in pure emotion and images. It showed Maya the other Thornback packs across the planet, all waiting for a signal to attack. It showed her the weak points in the Zephyrian ships, places where concentrated crystal energy could disrupt their shields. Most importantly, it showed her that the Thornbacks had been watching human settlements for years. Learning about them, waiting for the right moment to make contact, that moment was now. Maya turned back toward the shuttle and activated her communication. Device, Hughes, patch me through to Captain Morrison. Dr. Collins. Morrison's voice crackled through the radio. What's your status? Captain, I need you to trust me completely. The Thornbacks have a plan to destroy the Zephyrian ships, but they need our help to coordinate it. There was a long pause. Above them, the battle continued as human fighters tried desperately to hold off the Grey invaders. The Endeavor was still in orbit, badly damaged but functional. What kind of help? Morrison asked finally. Maya closed her eyes and reached out to the Alpha again. The creature's mind was like a vast library of tactical knowledge. It had been studying the Zephyrian attack patterns, learning their weaknesses. The Thornbacks can generate electromagnetic pulses that will disable the enemy ships, Maya explained. But they need precise timing. All the packs across the planet have to attack at exactly the same moment, or the Zephyrians will adapt their defenses. How many are we talking about? Maya felt the Alpha's consciousness expand across the planet, touching the minds of pack leaders. In distant regions, the numbers flowed through her like a river of shared thought. 3,000 Thornbacks in 67 packs, she reported, spread across 4 continents. Morrison's voice was tight with disbelief. Collins, are you telling me that 3,000 crystal lizards are going to coordinate a planet-wide military operation? Yes, sir. But they need us to provide timing. Signals. Their communication network is based on ground vibrations. It's too slow for precise coordination across large distances. What do you need? Maya looked up at the Alpha Thornback, its crystalline eyes reflecting the burning sky above. The creature's trust was absolute, its determination unshakable. It was willing to risk everything to save its world, and it was asking humanity to do the same. I need to stay here and act as a communication relay, Maya said. My connection with the Alpha is strong enough to coordinate the attack, but you'll need to position the Endeavor over the main Zephyrian formation and transmit a synchronization signal to all the pack leaders simultaneously. Hughes stepped out of the shuttle, his weapon drawn but pointed at the ground. The Thornbacks around them tensed, their crystal ridges flickering with warning colors. Doc, this is insane, Hughes said. You're talking about using alien monsters? As weapons? They're not monsters, Maya replied sharply. They're people just like us, and this is their home. The Alpha Thornback made a low rumbling sound that Maya felt in her bones. Through their connection, she sensed its amusement at being called a monster. The creature found the comparison interesting, especially since the Zephyrians had been calling humans the same thing. Captain, Maya continued, the Thornbacks have been watching us for years. They know what kind of people we are. They've seen us trying to protect their planet from damage, working to understand their ecosystem instead of just exploiting it. That's why they're willing to trust us. Above them, a formation of gray ships swept across the sky, their weapons charging for another bombardment of the research station ruins. The Alpha's crystal ridges flared with angry red light. Time's running out, Maya said urgently. The Zephyrians are preparing for a final assault. If we're going to do this, it has to be now. Morrison's voice came back strong and decisive. All right, Dr. Collins, we're moving into position. You have 10 minutes to get your crystal friends ready? Maya smiled and pressed both hands against the Alpha's warm, living stone skin. She opened her mind fully to the creature's consciousness, feeling their thoughts merge and flow together. Through the Alpha, She could sense the other pack leaders across the planet, all waiting for the signal to strike. "We're ready, Captain," she said. "Let's show these invaders what happens when they threaten our friends." The Alpha Thornback raised its massive head toward the sky and roared, a sound that shook the ground and echoed across the burning landscape. From every direction, the answering calls of its pack filled the air with primitive music. The battle for Kepler 442b was about to begin. The coordinated attack on Kepler 442b changed everything. News of the victory spread through human space faster than anyone expected. 3,000 Thornbacks had struck simultaneously across 4 continents, their crystal energy pulses disabling. Every Zephyrian ship on the planet, not a single gray vessel escaped. But what shocked the military leadership even more was Maya's report about the Thornbacks themselves. These weren't just animals fighting for territory. They were an intelligent species with their own civilization, and they had chosen to ally with humanity against a common enemy. Admiral Lisa Grant called an emergency meeting at Fleet Command headquarters on New Earth. Maya found herself standing before the most powerful military officers in human space, trying to explain something that seemed impossible. "Dr. Collins," Admiral Grant said, studying the tactical reports from Kepler 442b, "you're asking us to believe that animals across multiple worlds are willing to fight alongside human forces?" "Yes, ma'am," Maya replied. "But they're not just animals. The Thornbacks have cities, families, technology. They're people, just different from us." General Alex Carter leaned forward in his chair. "Even if that's true, how do we coordinate with creatures that don't use our communication systems?" Maya had been thinking about that question for weeks. After the battle on Kepler 442b, she had started reaching out to other colonies, looking for humans who might have similar abilities. What she found amazed her. "There are others like me," Maya explained. "People who can connect with alien life forms." Dr. Sam Rodriguez on Titan's Edge has been working with the frost whales that live in the planet's underground oceans. Alina Martinez on Sahara Prime has formed bonds with the sand serpents that tunnel through the desert. Dr. Kevin Barnes, the fleet psychologist, had been studying Maya's brain scans for months. "We've identified the genetic markers that allow for this kind of communication," he reported to the assembled officers. "It appears to be a rare mutation that affects about 1 in 10,000 humans. The ability manifests differently depending on the local alien life forms." Admiral Grant looked skeptical. "You're talking about building a military alliance with creatures that most of our colonists consider dangerous predators." "That's because we never tried to understand them," Maya said firmly. "The Zephyrians have been enslaving and exterminating native species on dozens of worlds. These creatures aren't just defending territory, they're fighting for survival." The proof came 2 weeks later when the Zephyrians attacked the mining colony on Verdania. The jungle world was home to creatures called shadow maws, intelligent pack hunters with natural cloaking abilities. When the gray ships arrived, expecting an easy conquest, they found something very different waiting for them. Commander Beth Taylor led the human defense force, but the real strategy came from the shadow maws themselves. Maya coordinated the battle from orbit, her consciousness linked with the pack leaders through quantum communication arrays that Dr. Barnes had developed. The shadow maws struck from the jungle canopy while the Zephyrians were focused on the human settlements. Their natural cloaking made them invisible to alien sensors, and their pack-hunting instincts allowed them to coordinate complex ambush tactics. By the time the gray ships realized what was happening, half their ground forces had been eliminated, but the shadow maws brought more than just military support. They shared something that changed Maya's understanding of the war completely. Through their collective memory, passed down through generations, they showed her the true scope of Zephyrian expansion. The gray ships had been conquering worlds for over 1,000 years, systematically destroying any species that showed signs of intelligence or useful abilities. They harvested resources, enslaved survivors, and moved on to the next target. Dozens of civilizations had been wiped out completely. Maya shared this knowledge with Admiral Grant during their next meeting. The tactical room fell silent as she transmitted the Shadow Maw memories through the neural interface that Dr. Barnes had built. "This isn't just a war over territory," Maya explained. "The Zephyrians are committing genocide on a galactic scale. Every species they encounter is either enslaved or eliminated." General Carter studied the star maps that showed Zephyrian expansion patterns. "If this is accurate, they've destroyed civilizations on over 200 worlds. The surviving species are desperate," Maya continued. "That's why they're willing to trust us. Humanity is the first species that's ever tried to communicate with them instead of exploit them." Admiral Grant made a decision that would reshape the entire war. "Dr. Collins, I'm authorizing the creation of the Interspecies Tactical Division. You'll have whatever resources you need to build this alliance." Maya's first major breakthrough came when she made contact with the Void Swimmers, massive creatures that lived in the empty space between star systems. She had been trying to reach them for months, sending out telepathic signals through the quantum arrays. When one finally responded, the creature was enormous. Easily the size of a battleship, with translucent skin that rippled with bioluminescent patterns. It fed on solar radiation and cosmic particles, swimming through space like a whale through an ocean. But it was also ancient and incredibly intelligent. Through their connection, Maya learned that the Void Swimmers had been the first species the Zephyrians encountered 1,000 years ago. They had tried to make peaceful contact, offering to share their knowledge of space navigation and cosmic phenomena. The Zephyrians had responded by hunting them nearly to extinction, harvesting their bioluminescent organs to power their technology. The surviving Void Swimmers had been hiding in the dark spaces between stars ever since, watching as the gray ships destroyed world after world. They had given up hope of ever stopping the Zephyrian expansion until Maya reached out to them. "They know where the main Zephyrian fleet is hiding," Maya reported to Admiral Grant. "It's in a nebulous system, 3 sectors beyond our current position. The Void Swimmers have been tracking them for decades." General Carter looked at the star charts with new interest. "Can they guide our ships through that nebula? Our navigation systems aren't designed for that kind of environment." Maya smiled. "They can do better than that. The Void Swimmers know every current and energy field in that region. They can lead us right to the Zephyrian home base." But the Void Swimmers wanted more than just revenge. Through Maya, they made an offer that surprised everyone. They would guide the human fleet to the Zephyrian stronghold, but only if humanity promised to help rebuild the civilizations that had been destroyed. "They want us to be gardeners, not conquerors," Maya explained to the assembled officers. "They've seen what happens when a species tries to dominate the galaxy. They want to make sure humanity doesn't make the same mistakes." Admiral Grant considered the proposal carefully. The military advantages were obvious, but the long-term implications were staggering. Humanity would be committing to a role as protectors and peacekeepers across dozens of star systems. "Dr. Collins," the Admiral said finally, "tell our new allies that we accept their terms. If they help us stop the Zephyrians, we'll help them rebuild what was lost." Maya felt a wave of hope and gratitude from the Void Swimmers transmitted across the vast distances of space through their quantum connection. For the first time in 1,000 years, the ancient creatures believed that the galaxy might know peace again. The stage was set for the final confrontation with the Zephyrian Empire. The massive Void Swimmer moved through space like a living starship, its transparent body glowing with patterns of blue and silver light. Maya stood on the bridge of the flagship USS Liberty, her consciousness linked to the ancient creature as it guided the human fleet through the treacherous Crimson Nebula. Admiral Lisa Grant watched the tactical displays with growing amazement. The nebula was filled with energy storms and gravitational anomalies that would have destroyed any ship trying to navigate by instruments alone. But the Void Swimmer knew every current and pocket of stable space, leading them safely through passages no human captain would have dared to attempt. "Distance to target?" Grant asked. Colonel Danny Price checked his readings. 2 hours at current speed. The Zephyrian home fleet should be just beyond that energy barrier ahead. Maya felt the Void Swimmers' ancient sadness as they approached their destination. Through their connection, she could sense the creature's memories of this place from 1,000 years ago, when it first encountered the gray ships. Back then, the Zephyrians had seemed curious about other life forms. That curiosity had quickly turned to exploitation and destruction. "They're afraid," Maya reported quietly. "The Void Swimmers lost most of their family here. This is where the Zephyrians first started hunting them." General Alex Carter studied the fleet formations on his screen. Behind the Liberty, over 200 human ships followed in tight formation. Cruisers, destroyers, and the massive dreadnought USS Titan formed the main battle line. But the real strength of their force wasn't visible on any scanner. Spread throughout the nebula, thousands of allied creatures moved in coordination with the human fleet. Gas giant dwelling leviathans from the outer planets swam through the energy clouds, their bioelectric abilities allowing them to survive in conditions that would kill any normal life form. Crystalline miners from the asteroid belt used their natural boring abilities to clear paths through the densest parts of the nebula. Even the microscopic nanoswarms had joined the fight. Billions of tiny organisms that could infiltrate enemy systems and disrupt their technology from within. Maya could feel all of them through her expanded consciousness, a vast network of alien intelligence united in a single purpose. "Contact ahead," the sensor operator announced. Multiple large vessels emerging from the energy barrier. On the main screen, the Zephyrian home fleet appeared like a dark cloud against the swirling colors of the nebula. At the center sat their world ship, a massive construct the size of a small moon. Gray vessels of every class surrounded it in defensive formations, their weapons already charging for battle. Admiral Grant opened communication channels to the entire fleet. "All ships, this is Admiral Grant. Today we fight not just for humanity, but for every species that has suffered under Zephyrian rule. Remember, we're not alone in this battle." The Zephyrian response came immediately. Their ships opened fire, with weapons that tore through space itself, creating rifts in reality that would have shattered normal matter. But the human fleet was ready. The Void Swimmer released a pulse of bioelectric energy that disrupted the enemy, targeting systems just long enough for the ships to scatter into evasive patterns. Maya closed her eyes and reached out through the quantum network that connected her 2,000s of alien minds. "Now," she whispered. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Leviathans emerged from the gas cloud surrounding the Zephyrian fleet, their massive bodies crackling with electrical discharges that shut down entire squadrons of gray ships. Crystalline miners swarmed over the larger vessels, their diamond-hard appendages cutting through armor that had never been breached before. The nanoswarms struck like invisible plague, infiltrating life support systems and computer networks throughout the Zephyrian fleet. Enemy ships began to drift powerless as their own technology turned against them. But the world ship itself remained protected by shields that no conventional weapon could penetrate. Maya could feel the presence inside it, a being of pure energy, housed in a crystalline matrix. The Zephyrian Emperor, the mind that had directed 1,000 years of conquest and genocide. "I need to get aboard that ship," Maya told Admiral Grant. "Absolutely not," Grant replied firmly. "We can bombard it from here." "The shields are too strong," Maya insisted. "But I can feel something else. There are other consciousness inside that ship, enslaved beings that the Zephyrians have been using to power their technology. If I can reach them, I can turn their own system against them." Colonel Price looked up from his tactical display. "Dr. Collins, that ship is the size of a city. How do you plan to get inside?" Maya smiled and pointed to the main screen where one of the Void Swimmers was approaching the world ship. "I have friends who know the way." The ancient creature positioned itself alongside the massive Zephyrian construct, its bioluminescent patterns shifting to match the energy frequencies of the enemy shields. For a moment, the two seemed to merge, becoming a single entity of light and matter. Maya felt her consciousness transfer through the quantum link, flowing from her human body into the Void Swimmer's alien awareness, then deeper into the crystalline matrix of the world ship itself. She found herself in a vast network of imprisoned minds, beings from dozens of species that the Zephyrians had captured and enslaved over the centuries. The Emperor's presence loomed before her like a burning star, its consciousness ancient and coldly intelligent. It had noticed her intrusion and was trying to force her out of the system. But Maya wasn't alone. Through her connection to the allied creatures, thousands of other minds joined her in the crystal network. Thornback intelligence merged with Shadowmaw. Cunning, void swimmer wisdom, combined with Leviathan strength. For the first time in 1,000 years, the Emperor faced an opponent that matched its own mental abilities. The battle was fought in pure thought, consciousness against consciousness, in a realm beyond physical space. Maya felt the Emperor's surprise as it realized what it was facing. This wasn't just human determination or alien instinct. This was something new, a fusion of multiple species working together in perfect harmony. The enslaved minds within the world ship felt the change and began to rebel. Systems that had operated for centuries started to fail as their operators refused to obey Zephyrian commands. Shields flickered and weapons powered down as the very foundation of the enemy empire crumbled from within. In the physical world, the Zephyrian fleet began to retreat. Ships that had never known defeat fled in panic as their command structure collapsed. The world ship itself started to break apart as internal conflicts tore it apart from inside, through the quantum link. Maya felt the Emperor's final message before its consciousness scattered into fragments. It had finally understood what humanity represented and why its empire had been doomed from the moment. They encountered the human colonies. Humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology or their weapons. It was their ability to form bonds with other life forms, to see intelligence and worth in beings completely different from themselves. Zephyrians had spent 1,000 years trying to conquer the galaxy through force and fear. Humanity had united it through friendship and respect. As the surviving Zephyrian ships fled toward the galactic rim, Abun opened her eyes on the bridge of the Liberty. Around her, the crew was cheering as they watched the enemy retreat. Attention was focused on the quantum network that still connected her to thousands of alien minds across the galaxy. The war was over, but the real work was just beginning. There were civilizations to rebuild, species to heal, and a new kind of galactic community to create. Maya smiled as she felt the hope and determination flowing through the network from creatures on hundreds of worlds. The woman who spoke to beasts had indeed ensured the enemy never stood a chance, not through superior firepower, but by proving that cooperation was stronger than conquest, that unity could triumph over domination, and that the galaxy was big enough for everyone to share.